Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Slant 3D podcast, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today, we're going to talk about Google executives taking over all over the 3D printing industry, the design of the week that we're going to go ahead and take a look at and do a design critique of, some updates on Tangled and Teleport, and then talking about what makes something useful, and finishing it off, as usual, with your guys' questions. But before that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. Drop in this one here. I will also just film one right here this second. This episode is brought to you by Teleport. Teleport is our print-on-demand application that allows anybody to get access to our hundreds of 3D printers to grow their business. All you have to do is connect the Teleport app up to your e-commerce store, Etsy, eBay, Amazon, Shopify, whatever it is, and whenever you get an order, we will print that item and ship it straight to your customer for you. So you no longer have to run a giant print farm day and night, or know how international shipping works, or know how to pack a box and get it out the door. You get to access hundreds of machines to grow your business, start your business, or just expand your business. Teleport is free to get started, and you can upload as many items as you want to actually start selling. So check out Teleport today over at slantpod.com. All right, into the 3D printing news here. Eric Schmidt takes over at Relativity Space. So Eric Schmidt is the second CEO of Google. Larry was technically the first CEO and then the third CEO. But Eric Schmidt was the CEO of Google for years and years and years. He has been semi-retired, doing other stuff here for the last about 10 years or so. But he is now the CEO of Relativity Space, which is known for having launched the first orbital class 3D printed rocket. And it was last summer that they got that launched. So this is very interesting. Relativity Space currently I think is valued about $10 billion or something. It was started by a kid named Tim Ellis. He's my age. What am I talking about? We're both kids, is what it is. But Tim Ellis started it with a partner of his. Tim had worked at Blue Origin for a couple of years. Inside of 3D printing, and he said, well, this is silly. We should be using this to make the nozzles of the rockets at least, and probably the whole rocket. So they created the world's biggest 3D printer, which is a robot arm with a welder on the end of it, and they printed an entire rocket, including the fuselage, the engines, and most of the components. I think 80% of the part count was 3D printed. They got launched last year. The launch was a failure, but they got it off the ground, proving that they could get it done. And they've since been restructuring to realize, printing the fuselage of a large, tall, skinny rocket is kind of dumb when you can just roll a sheet into a roll and then put 3D printed engines into it, because that's a brilliant idea. So they've been refocusing and working on their larger rocket in order to be more competitive with SpaceX. Eric Schmidt dropped a bunch of money into Relativity last year and this spring, to such a degree that he is now the majority shareholder of Relativity Space. And here just recently, Tim Ellis, the original CEO, has stepped aside, and Eric Schmidt will be taking over. When he did the investment, it was with the intention that he would be taking over. I'm going to read the notes here from 3dprint.com. In addition to taking over as CEO, Eric Schmidt has acquired a controlling stake in Relativity Space, according to the New York Times. His investment comes as the company has struggled to raise new funding, with sources indicating that Schmidt agreed to provide financial backing on the condition that he take over day-to-day operations. While Relativity initially positioned itself as a leader in 3D printed rockets, it has increasingly moved away from full additive manufacturing, incorporating more traditionally manufactured components, a shift that raises questions about its original cost reduction strategy. The company's long-term ambition to establish an industrial base on Mars has also faced setbacks, with a previously planned 2024 private Mars mission failing to materialize. Therefore, the Relativity Space of tomorrow will likely look quite different from that of yesterday. It definitely looks different from yesterday. And here's the thing. Relativity's idea of fully 3D printed rockets, quite frankly, was always dumb. It was never going to work. Because again, a very long tube made with 3D printing is a silly thing to do when you can get large sheet steel and roll it into a tube. That is a traditional situation of, we have this technology, we're going to use it for everything. No. Print the rocket nozzles where the 3D printing creates a very explicit benefit. And then you go roll sheet steel for the tube that you got to put it inside of. There is a little bit of rumor about this around Eric Schmidt taking over, that Eric Schmidt has been increasingly involved in, I'm going to say military applications. That's not a fair assessment of it. Eric Schmidt doesn't really like military applications. He's even discussed this. He's like, I'm a classical California liberal. I don't really like war and weapons, but he does believe in the deterrence of arms and that kind of stuff, and does believe that the United States has fallen behind to where we're not able to defend ourselves against new technological threats. And space is one of those. And I'll bet he may also have opinions about the fact that Elon is the primary launch provider right now. So he probably wants to help enable that, because Relativity has a rocket that's gotten off the ground. And there are not very many private companies that have done that. And apparently Boeing can't do that, even though it's the oldest, best known. So he's probably just getting into the mix, and space is increasingly important. But it's interesting that a 3D printing company such as Relativity has this high profile of a CEO. Eric Schmidt is an exceptional CEO. His business acumen and his operational expertise is fantastic. And what he did with Google is fantastic, and his attitude towards all this stuff is fantastic. He's a very, very good executive. Historically, when he got started, he started at Sun Microsystems, which for all you young kids, back in the olden days, it was one of the companies. Eventually got beat out from basically personal computers and that kind of thing. They were doing a lot more workstations, or bigger workstations and that kind of thing. But anyhow, yeah, Eric Schmidt, really good CEO. He turned Google into what it is, and then Larry took it and ran with that. Eric Schmidt came in at a time when startup CEOs were hired by venture capitalists to have a real CEO. The founders would start it, and then you get a real CEO to run the thing, and then you go from there. Eric Schmidt was one of the more progressive ones to come in as the CEO, engage with the startup thing, and not just be a suit, because he's a computer scientist historically. So he's an engineer who became an executive, and then give it back to Larry when Larry was ready. And I think it was 2011 when Eric, oh wow, it's been 15 years. Yeah, I think it was 2011 when Eric Schmidt stepped down and Larry took over as CEO again until the current CEO, the transition happened to the current CEO. And the tweet was adult supervision no longer required. So anyhow, Eric Schmidt, if you're interested in like business philosophy, I highly recommend watching some of Eric's interviews at like the Stanford Business School or some of his lectures. He's just very good and very insightful and not overcomplicated or what am I trying to say? Vernacularly. A lot of CEOs, when they talk about operating businesses, throw a bunch of fluff in there. He's very to the point. There's nuggets all the time. But yeah, that. So Relativity Space is now run by the ex-Google CEO. That's pretty good get. And congratulations to him. And Eric Schmidt definitely has resources. So yeah, that'll be great for them. Next piece of news. Tangential to this. Larry Page is involved in Dynatomics. You guys have no idea who Dynatomics is. Dynatomics is a stealth mode startup that is reportedly being run by Chris Anderson, who was the former CTO of Kitty Hawk, which was a flying car startup that was funded by Larry Page. It also had a Sebastian Thrun inside of it, who started Udacity and was also the first one to win the DARPA Grand Challenge for self-driving cars across a desert way back in 2004. That's a lot more trivia and history than anybody was wanting, but I love this because this group of people I've followed for years. But anyhow, Dynatomics is creating software for AI to optimize design of manufactured goods. So basically, upload a 3D model of an injection molded part and have it give back, oh, the draft angle's wrong, watch out for flashing right here, do a design review of the part, is the prompt of what the company is doing. They're still in stealth, so we don't really know what it is. We also don't know what Larry's involvement is. Quite frankly, Larry Page has kind of dropped out of public notoriety since 2018, 2019. He doesn't give interviews, mainly because I think at this point he can barely speak. Larry's been really hoarse for a long time because he has a thing with his throat. So he's never been a big public speaker, but it's gotten worse. And ever since COVID, I think he's been on his private island in the Virgin Isles for basically the last 5 years, to where he's like a citizen down there or something like that. So involved just means that, yeah, he'll give some tips and throw some money that direction. But Larry has been really kind of off the field ever since passing off the CEO role of Google. Again, Larry's an exceptionally smart and hardworking person, but there's just, but involved is probably a slightly overstated word, quite frankly, even this. But Dynatomics, what they're doing as far as AI evaluation of manufacturability is great. And that can, there's a ton of cost savings there because, yeah, we talk about this on this channel all the time. People don't get molds right on the first try. Never do. Just the same way people don't launch software and it works fine on the first try. Everybody thinks really hard, tries to perfect a mold, and then you make the part or you ramp up production, and then the mold has to be reworked. Almost always. You want a great story of this? Go check Linus Tech Tips talking about making the screwdriver 3 or 4 years ago. He walks through this. We made the mold and it was wrong. And then we made the mold again. And then the manufacturer screwed us. And then we made the mold again. And then we perfected that. And we polished it. And I didn't like how it turned on. Yada, 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 yada. So anything to be done to prevent that reworking, which is stupidly expensive, would be huge. I don't think it's necessary anymore because 3D printing can ramp up to replace injection molding. Already can. But you still, I'd like to steal it to do a design eval of these 3D printed parts because there's really obvious things there that could be done, though much less data. The stupid AI would have to train off of our YouTube channel exclusively. Okay, that's all the news for this week. There are a few other little odd topics and that kind of thing, but nothing too darn interesting. All right, moving on to Tangled updates. Let's see here. Tangled. Updates. Not too much. Orders were caught up. Big old surge came through again. Middle of the month is when we first release subscriptions, so it's when everybody's subscriptions renews. So that's when everybody orders more stuff. So there's a surge coming that is slowing us down a little bit, but now we know about this and we're planning ahead enough for it, so it shouldn't last very long. But filament stuff is going out. We've gotten a little bit of feedback. The big thing here, guys, print Tangled filament really, really hot. Here's the thing. People don't really realize this, but we make exceptionally good material because it's virgin material. This is why. We make black PLA. Everybody else who makes black PLA generally makes it from regrind. And regrind is when you take the edges from your orange, your purple, your white, your leftovers, all the other colors, you grind them up, and then you add black dye to it because all the other colors will turn to black, and then you extrude that material. But each time you melt and solidify a thermoplastic, PLA, its melting temperature decreases. Now, in general, this is fine because most people who buy PLA want it to melt at 180 to 200 or so, and that's kind of like the advertised temperature. And that's fine. But many manufacturers put additives in it in order to make it more flexible and have it like not snap because virgin PLA is a little bit brittle and tangled PLA is a little bit brittle. But since we do not put in additives or use regrind, we use pure PLA. It hasn't been cycled through a bunch of hot melting and reforming cycles, so it is much higher temp to melt. Most PLAs are about 200, 180, 200 degrees, especially black PLAs or stuff with additives. Tangled PLA should be printed at a minimum of 220 degrees, regardless of what machine you're using. And if you're going to high speed, take it up to 250 or more. This is so common. We get messages all the time of like, you jammed my machine. And always, almost always, they're running it too cold. They're running it through like a bamboo machine with default PLA profiles. But we basically have high temp PLA compared to everybody else. But it's not. It is normal PLA. It is NGO 4043 PLA. We will probably change our marketing around it. We will probably start calling it high temp PLA just so that people know to raise their printing temperatures. Because we can't make it blatant enough that the temperature should be higher. But yeah, if you're running into problems with the Tangled PLA, jack up your print temps, especially if it printed for a little while fine and then you're having like jamming problems, jack up your temp. Because you went through like a little region where you just got away with it barely, or the thing was printing slow or something like that. So raise your temperatures. Raise your temperatures, please, for Tangled. A lot. And if you go up to 250 and it's still not working, take it to 270. Keep going. Keep going. But also the way we process our PLA, we actually haven't proven this out because for the most part, the PLA prints at 250 just fine. Or at slower speeds, you can go at normal PLA temps. But the way we process our PLA, we extrude much faster than a lot of people. And by doing that, we've inadvertently changed or not changed the properties of the PLA to where the crystallization of it is different. Because a lot of people, when they're moving slower, it's molten for longer than it is molten for us. It goes from hot to cold pretty quick. So we may be crystallizing it in such a way to where we're kind of converting regular PLA into it. That is a hypothesis. I don't know that for sure because it still prints at the same temperature that it's meant to be processed at and that it's advertised at by NGO, the original resin manufacturer. But we may have inadvertently either maintained or increased the ultimate temperature strain resistance of it. We've never done really temperature testing or like hot car testing with Tangled PLA, so we don't know. But ultimately, yeah, if it's holding up on you, print it out because we don't throw garbage. We don't reuse filament in the making of our filament. It's pure virgin stuff. So it's better, but at the same time, this is a perfect situation where quality means different things. Technically, we have very good quality material because it is virgin, it is clean, and it is closest to the original form of what was intended. But it is worse because it doesn't print at the typical advertised general population PLA temps. So it's worse because it surprises people. So we need to change our messaging and our marketing around it a little bit there so that people more blatantly know, print this really flipping hot. And this is the first step towards that. So yeah, that's Tangled with that. Let's see here. Thank you for everybody who responded to last week. By the way, anybody who's worried, like we're not planning to shut down Tangled or anything like that. It's simply a thing that could be grown more if it had more time and attention. Right now, we're getting our Series A closed out, so it should allow us to continue to expand that in a meaningful way because we have time and resources and people available then to do that kind of stuff, so long as it's not taking away from the core projects of the company, which is Teleport. But yeah, Tangled is cranking along. Orders have been shipping fast for members. If you're a non-member, sorry, you got to wait until everybody else gets shipped out. That's just the rules. If you don't like it, go get the membership, which is cheaper than the shipping you're paying for the non-member stuff anyway, and it ships faster. So we tried to make the membership as attractive as possible and as good of a deal as possible. So that's the thing. Anything else with Tangled? Print at hotter temps. Print at hotter temps. Print hot, 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 hot. Please, please, please. Okay. Let's see here. Teleport updates. Right now, the last week or so, orders have been shipping in under 3 days. So we're finally caught up, and we plan to maintain that here. There might be a big old surge of stuff coming, and I'm going to jinx us, but what a jinx to have. But right now, we're keeping up, and we've matched the current usage. So we've got that. We'll also be breaking loose new advertising and stuff around Teleport, so users should start increasing. Also with Teleport, again, I want to promo the Reddit page, 3D Print Entrepreneurs. Quite frankly, I'm really proud of the Reddit page. It's got 200 users over there. People are active. People are asking really good questions around just creation of a 3D printing business, which is what we wanted that page to be. And then, yes, questions about Teleport and new features and those kind of discussions are going up over there. We're also... I know I keep on saying this every week, but we have a bunch of stuff trickling down in Teleport, which is just about to get broken loose. We're right on the cusp of it. So improved overall customer support and feedback. We're implementing intercom on that, and that'll be coming. You'll start to see that really soon. And then yes, updates inside of Teleport around flat rate shipping and international shipping around that flat rate shipping stuff, and then instant refund and reship buttons. Those will be coming up here pretty soon too. Implementing those fundamentally. So I haven't really mentioned this before, but we've been doing a big old revamp on the API, which is supporting all of this. So we get the API, which is the spine of it, done, and then we can go to Teleport, which is the heart of it all, and then it'll all trickle down. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. Teleport customer feedback. It's been good. Everybody's fine, but it is hilarious because like literally prior to Teleport, doing this was impossible. Prior to Teleport, there was no print service that integrated into your e-commerce platform that you could sign up for in 20 minutes, upload a file, get an instant quote, and ship it to a customer and never have to think about it again. There was no passive 3D print-on-demand service. And even right now, we are the fastest shipping 3D printing service of any type. The fact that we are shipping now under 3 days, any part that shows up in basically any volume, is kind of a big deal because, well, that's not fair. Like Xometry and Proto Labs technically ship in a couple days for some 3D printed stuff. Though shipping takes a long time. And of course, like all the Chinese ones take 2 weeks to cross the ocean, so they don't count at all. But anyhow, the point is the functionality of Teleport did not exist 6 months ago. Now it exists, and people have a lot of complaints about it, which is fine. No, it's like, it's kind of like, it's not complaints. It's like, what have you done for me lately? Yeah, we can teleport stuff, and I was in Europe, and now I have a full US distribution of 3D printed parts. But that button has an irritating color. And it's delightful because humans are just constantly dissatisfied. And it helps to create the roadmap because if you just listen to your customers, you always know what needs to be done next. And it's funny that even though this is kind of freaking amazing that you can set up a 3D printing store without even owning a 3D printer and go from zero to thousands of dollars in sales. And again, never own a 3D printer and basically just have profit from it. That was not possible 6 months ago, but it's not good enough now because we got to get this other stuff in it now. Everybody's got all these other things they need in it. It's just funny. That's an observation. That's not a complaint or anything else. It's just funny. Okay. With that, though, the discussion topic of the day, make something useful. This has come up in the observation of the successes inside of Teleport and conversations that we've had with people and the conversations on like the Reddit and around. People ask, what should I be selling? What kind of a business should I start? And this last week, I was making one of the Reddit posts, and it was where to find 3D models to sell. What Patreons, what things pages, what websites, where can you license files? And I was running through all of these places and looking at what was available, and I was building out the list, and I had a list of like 5 or 10 or 20 fidget animal Patreons or whatever it was, which is fine. I get that's the big one. But then that was half of the list, and then the other half of the list was everything else. I think that creates a fantastic market opportunity. Because when the whole horde is rolling in this direction on this one single thing, which everybody tries to sell these fidget dragons at trade shows and all this other stuff, there's all the other actual meat that is way more useful. I can tell you right now, everyone who is having wild success on like Teleport are making function forward items. Organizers, accessories, stuff that is used for something. These niches that solve a problem. These items that solve problems. Very few are making like toys. Even though we have the colors and that kind of stuff on there. Like there's very few toys. There's a few fidget widget guys that are doing it, but like compared to the functional items, it's not as big. So there's this, and if you look at the repos, the vast majority of 3D printing designs are kind of for show things, like fidgets and that kind of stuff, which are fine, but they're mainly just a toy that looks cool. They're not even necessarily like the old fidget spinner, kind of like, oh, this is good at my office. No, they're just a thing. They're a doll. There's a tremendous opportunity right now for 3D designers who make functional items, organizers, tools, widgets, gadgets, lamps, home decor organizer stuff, shelves, that kind of thing, to create files that are really useful, because solving problems, number one, people see the pain, so they sell better, and they're also easier to design. I need a doorstop that fits a 1952 door. I need a cup holder for a 1973 Ford pickup, that kind of a thing. Or I need a cup holder for my weird brand of tumbler so that it fits in the cup holder of my Honda Civic, that kind of stuff. Really specific things that normal customers recognize and can describe, as in, I need a cup holder for my Yeti tumbler to fit in my Honda Civic. That is something someone would Google or go looking for, because they can describe it, as opposed to grand invention. People don't know about your grand invention because they don't know that it exists or that they need it, but they know they need that. So creating these really functional items is a huge opportunity for people, because it's just not done enough right now, very clearly. Even in that list of Patreons that I was running through, half of it was widgets or fidget items. Another quarter of it was probably kind of the influencer, cool demonstration items that are cool to print, but not really high utility or necessarily high selling items. It's like, I made, they're like pots and planters and that kind of thing, which look cool, but they don't actually sell that well. And then like the final quarter, only because we were working hard at it, were like functional items, like household items. So the design of it, I think, is really useful, because any designer who makes these functional things will be able to sell a bunch of those files to guys who are actually selling the prints. And now, thanks to Teleport, people who don't have 3D printers or aren't interested in it can actually go find files and sell the actual printed products. And those people can be more marketing or business focused, so that 3D printing people can focus on design, if that's your thing. If you're an artist or a really talented engineer or something, you can solve problems all day. You can create these types of things and sell or license the files and just crank these out and make a good living, because you make functional stuff that people can sell. And functional things sell better than widgets. If you're a talented designer, I really don't recommend going into the fidget toys, because the fidget toys are just about played out. And there's no way, as a designer, there's not a really good way to differentiate. People starting businesses with the fidgets still have lots of ways to differentiate, because business just gives you a lot more directions. So, I implore everybody to make functional items with 3D printing. There's this idea that they got to be designer items or like toys or fidgets and that kind of stuff. And there's really functional stuff that can be done. Here, I'm going to grab this. Grab this example. This thing right here, we've never done a video about it, but it's been sitting around here for a while, but the video's coming. This is a chop saw push stick that when you're pushing it along, these little stops drop down automatically in the back to push your board along into the saw, or they can sit up flat so that you can just hold the board down and you don't mar up the board. But this push stick is very functional, could be done very well, and can be sold for $20-$30, especially if you add some more functionality on it. There's supposed to be a rubber mat right there for this particular design. But these types of things, functional items that would not get created otherwise. But 3D printing now allows it. And things like Teleport allow people to monetize lots of inventions. So make something useful. Please, please, please focus on making something useful. Because quite frankly, the people who do and are able to sell it are making bank right now. Okay. Questions of the week. Okay. What have we got today? The questions of the week. Let me get over here. Hold on. I got it navigated. If I was a professional podcaster, I would have had these all prepped and ready to go. And I don't. And oh well. Life can be hard sometimes. Alrighty, here we go. Good stuff. So, the first questions. No, on my face. Ugh, not the ads. Don't show me the ads. I'm not doing none of that stuff. But yes, each week we review questions from below the podcast the week before and any other comments that we can possibly find. This week, if you would like to have me answer a question here on podcast, comment down below, what your question is. Them's the rules. If you don't follow the rules, I don't have to read your comment and respond to it. Them's the rules. Sorry. If you can't follow simple instructions, can't get on the podcast. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Comments. Question. How do you judge if a part can be auto-ejected? Do you do a test print, or is there some metric you can apply, i.e. first layer surface area? Yes. The evaluation of auto-ejection takes into account a lot of different factors because it's effectively an engineering problem of you have an item adhered to a surface, how much force has to be applied to that item in order to have it, and at what location to have it removed. So it's kind of a vertical cantilevered beam. So there's a small little sequence or piece of math that we do on that around the geometry of the part to know if it's auto-ejectable. But auto-ejection, that analysis is kind of done at the quoting stage. We don't generally automate it. It's an evaluation based on the part, based on the margins within that. Question. Can you talk more specifically about how your machines are so tightly integrated with your print farm? Not looking for trade secrets, just lessons in scaling that drove the decisions in the engineering processes that followed. That would be trade secrets. The engineering decisions and the lessons around scaling, those would effectively be the trade secrets. But I get what your question is. Why they're tightly integrated with the print farm. So a print farm is a factory. Many people believe that many people do not realize that a factory is an entire system. A factory is one single machine composed of a lot of machines. So the reason for us using our own machines and our own software is because we don't view the machine as separate from the software. It is a system. And in order for, it's kind of like the old adage, if people who are really serious about software build their own hardware, that's kind of the situation. The reason we build our own machines is because I remember when COVID happened, and when COVID happens again, people won't get machinery from overseas again, or tariffs will happen, or whatever, or war breaks out. Who knows what all? Something will go wrong, and it'll all stop. And I want to be able to continue to build our machines because that's what we were able to do during COVID last time. We continued growing the farm with very little disruption because I was just able to move supplier here, move supplier there, and get the parts that we needed. So we want control of our supply chain. There is no consumer machine that is designed or appropriate for mass production 3D printing. There's just not. Consumer machines fundamentally have a product design, a set of product goals that are different from production. A consumer product implicitly needs to be disposable or have some half-life to it. It's meant to be user-friendly or hard for a person to screw up. And certain decisions in how to manufacture it are not amenable to like repairability or long-term reliability. Also, having a separate company make those product design decisions when I'm building a factory from 1,000 of these things is just freaking dangerous. And it has killed many print farms before. So third-party machines are super dangerous to use at the scale that we're going. So we have to use our own printers, certainly long-term. Now, I'm going to soften this just a little hair. We do watch and benchmark and keep tabs on third-party machines because we're a reasonably fast-growing company. And we're a company that does lots of stuff. So, and there's only so much we can do. We build software, we extrude material, we're building our machines. We have to build a new type of factory that's never existed before because print farms are different from any factory ever before in existence. All the things. It would be nice to, if we have to add on 5,000 machines in 2 weeks because frickin' Unilever decides they want to make toilet paper roll holders with us, we need to scale up very quickly. And our production capacity might not be able to keep up with that. So we keep tabs on third-party machines to where in a pinch, we can pull a bunch of those machines because they've got a factory that's making 1,000 of them a week. And we can just say, well, we did 1,000 every week for the next little while. Send them our way. And we can plug them into our system. So we do benchmark and prepare and have that parachute rug to pull to ensure that the company can continue to scale. But in order to continue doing this, we have to build our own thing because there's just no print farm system or print farm machine out there that is appropriately designed. Even today, everybody's still making fundamentally incorrect mistakes around creating a production machine because they're trying to make an appliance. It's not or a tool, and there's just different rules. There's different financial incentives, all the things. Like you guys, like a consumer 3D printer is meant to burn out in 18 months. I'm building a factory. A factory is supposed to last somewhere between 5 and 10 years. I'm not going to replace all the machinery in my factory every 18 months or have the manufacturer just give up or change out or upgrade to a new machine and stop supporting me. That's just not viable. But they're allowed to do that for consumer products because it creates a lot of distributed pain as opposed to centralized pain. We're a very weird customer and use case for the technology right now because nobody else is as big as us. Literally, there's a video coming out this coming week, actually may have come out before this podcast, where we ranked the top print farms on the planet that we could find. We operate in a different tier from everybody else. We just do because we're making so many more parts and have so many more machines. And there's so few people operating at this level. There was one other print farm in China that we could find. I think there's another one that I don't know about. I think there's one or two other ones that like aren't public enough to where we can make a video about them that I think might be similar sized, but they're certainly not service bureaus like we are, where we make parts for people. They're making their own internal stuff. But those, even within the factories that are similar size to us, we approach it very differently because again, like service bureau, we're the only one on the planet, even remotely this size, who does it as service bureaus. Most print service bureaus are like 50 machines, different types and that kind of stuff. We're the only pure FDM factory that anybody can upload a file to and get a print from. Yeah. Okay. Question. Any recommendations for bringing products to retail shops? I think that's a really good idea. Go to Slant Pod channel. I recommend you subscribe to the Slant Pod channel because we do like 5 business ideas for 3D printing, and this is one of the ones that we talk about. Retail shops. I highly recommend the business model that I think everybody should be doing. Go to your local gift shop and give them 3D printed topographical maps of the area or the hiking trails in the area. This is mainly for West Coast. Well, no, East Coast people have hiking trails too. The Appalachians are great. But create 3D printed maps like Yay Big and stuff that can go in gift shops because those things are traditionally really, really expensive or just not available for a particular area. And you can download it from freaking Google Maps or whatever it was, or Terrain to STL is the one I know, and I'm sure there's other tools now too. You can do it in Blender. But sell it to retail shops. Here's how you sell it to retail shops. If it's an independent shop, that's the only shop of its kind that exists. It's a mom and pop shop. All you have to do is walk in with your suitcase of stuff and say, hey, do you want to sell this stuff? And they will say no. And then you say, you can sell it on consignment. What consignment is that you give them the product. They don't have to buy it from you. They put it on their shelves, and when they sell it, they pay you for the product. But until they sell it, they're just storing it for you for free. Some of them will still say no. So you have to make sure you have a product that is good. Don't show up with fidget dragons. Well, you probably could show up with fidget dragons. They're not sold in every shop yet. But fidget dragons have a lot more room to run than many people realize. They seem overdone inside of the 3D printing space, but they have not penetrated the world yet at all. But you walk into the shop, say you'll sell it on consignment. That makes it easier for them to say yes because it's no risk to them. And if you create a nice original product, there's high upside to them because it's a product that they would otherwise never see. Beyond that, make the life easy for them. If they run out, make sure they're refilled. Don't nag them about it. The worst thing you can possibly do is if you go to one of these mom and pop shop stores, drop off parts one day and call them the next day to say, did any sell? No. You can wander by once a week and ask if somebody sold and say, okay, well, you owe me for the 10 of them or something. You can also structure it. Here's what I recommend. You need to make this minimal effort for these people because business owners are busy. They got stuff going on. Go to the shop, have the box, say, here's a box of 10. Try to sell them. I'll come back. I'll always make sure you have 10 in the box. And however many I add each week, I will bill you for. So if you show up and there's 8, you bill them for 2. And you put 2 more back in there so they always have 10. And the next week you circle back around and they've sold 5, so you put 5 in there and you bill them for 5. And life is really easy for everybody. Figure out how to do digital billing, understand what a PayPal invoice is, what a Square invoice is, something like that, so they do not have to write you a check. They can just pay you with a credit card or something. Make it easy for people because a lot of people who are new in business don't understand this. But trivial things pile up all over the place. People think, oh, just go to this link, click on it, put in your bank account details, and then wait 3 days, get it approved, phone call on it, and then I'll call you and I'll send the invoice to the wrong email, and then your receipt won't ever show up. And they're like, oh, that's a bunch of small, simple things. And since the new guy who's just getting started has nothing better to do, it doesn't seem like a lot of work. But small, simple, tiny things, each one of them is stupidly irritating when you're doing a lot of stuff. Because think of that retail store owner. They've got 20 other guys just like you sending them these piddly little invoices. And here's the thing. I want to make this clear also. They have to make a living. If your item costs $10, they're not going to sell it. And you shouldn't be selling it either because that's a hobby item. I would recommend that any item you attempt to sell in retail is at least $25 and you're selling it to the retailer for about 15 at least. That is the pay to play. If you are cheaper than that, not worth their time, not worth your time. You can sell it on Etsy or something like that because it's only your time. But again, follow the rules of the rule of threes. Whatever you want, expect them to sell it for inside the store, which again, you tell them. They're going to ask, what do I need to sell this for? You'll be like, I'm going to sell it to you for $10. You should sell it for 30. Rule of threes. Whatever it costs me to make, you sell it for 3 times more than that. There you go. That was a whole business class. But yeah, you go to the store, box of 10 items. You tell them exactly what to sell it for. You tell them what they're going to pay you for each one of them. You bill them once per month, preferably for the things. You can refill it each week to keep count of whatever it was if you really have nothing else going on. And then go from there. And if after 1 month they haven't sold any, you say, thank you, appreciate it, I'll get out of your way. And you take it out of their store for them. Because some of them will be nice mom and pop shops who want to keep on helping you, and they don't need the job. So have some empathy and don't try to burden other businesses with your stuff. If something doesn't sell in a month in a retail store, it's not going to sell ever. Yeah. But gift shops. I recommend topographical maps in gift shops here at the summer so that hikers can buy one. It's light in their backpack, and it's really freaking cool. It's a fantastic thing to carry around, and you can do them in different sizes, all this stuff. I think that's a fantastic idea. And you can call up every gift shop on every... Here's the model. I'm going to run with this. Here's the business model. All right. You go to terrain.stl. You pull down the top 10 hiking trails inside of the United States. You find the nearest town to that. You find the gift shop inside of that town. Again, all in Google Maps. You call up that gift shop. You say, you want to sell these 3D models. You mail them one just so that they have it. And then you can... and then they'll say yes, no, maybe so. They'll probably say no on the phone. So you mail them one and say, do you want to sell this? And have an email card inside of there so they can call you back and say, this is really cool, actually, in real life. I'll buy it from you. Then you can create a hidden Shopify store on Teleport. And this hidden Shopify store, you share the link to your retailers and you say, okay, if you want to sell it in your store, here is the retail portal. Go to this hidden Shopify page. You can buy it at wholesale prices. There's the map for $10. You buy it from me, sell it for $30. And they can go on there, buy 10. It's connected to Teleport. We will print off 10, ship them to that gift shop for you. And then they will sell them for $30. And when they run out, they will go to that Shopify store again, buy another 10 at wholesale value. You get the $10 free of charge, or pay off Teleport for $2 or whatever it is. And it all runs. And after you create, and all you do after you do that is you keep on going from hiking trail to hiking trail around the United States, pulling down the topographical data of the main trail and selling it to the gift shop in that area. And then after that's scaled up a little bit, you can take that Shopify store public and say hiking trail maps, and it will be totally passive income. You never have to run a print farm ever. You just generate new STL maps with good SEO, and you have a wholesale shop that the shop owners can purchase from, and then a public facing website, Shopify website, where people can buy it for retail value for more expensive than they're buying it in the shops, because that's the rule. Do that. I think that's a fantastic business model, because it's an excellent, useful thing that hikers can actually go along and be like, oh, I'm standing here in this valley on this hiking trail. This is cool. I'm going to have to climb that mountain. It's way better than regular maps. It's super light because it's 3D printed with low infill. And then they can take it home and put it on the shelf or hang it on the wall. And it's a fantastic piece of art. I think that's an amazing idea. And there's no payment or licensing fees for models. It's not hard to create those models. You download the square, you upload it to Teleport. So anybody can do this. We're going to cut this out of the podcast and put it as a separate video over there on the POD channel. And then you share that Shopify store in hiking Facebook groups so they find out about it, and you can get feedback and ideas for other hiking trails. And again, it's zero effort for somebody to make a suggestion, and you just create that new hiking trail. Fantastic. We need to do this. No, we don't have time. Somebody please do this. If you want help, call me. I'll do whatever, because it's a fantastic thing. All right, next question. Do you have a rough timeline on the release of spoolless? Would they be 3kg or 1kg spools? Also, any chance you get tax exemption set up for it with Tangled? Bunch of questions there. Rough timeline on the release of spoolless. So we had spoolless. We have a spoolless spooling machine down there that we were testing last fall. But the thing is, spoolless was meant to be a cost optimization of eliminating the spool. Only a cost optimization. We're not doing it from like a recycling standpoint, because there's really not that much benefit to it in reality. And we can go through that analysis some other day. But spoolless, from a cost optimization standpoint, it eliminates the spool, but it introduces a bunch more labor. And we were not able, up to this point, we're not able to process size spoolless filament to where it's more efficient to produce than the paying for the cost of the spool. So the spool is just more reliable from a production standpoint than spoolless at the moment, because we don't have a good workflow or process for spoolless to where it's reliable, and you don't end up having a high waste or a scrap rate. And also ensure good quality, because spoolless can go wrong very easily and very readily. So I'm not, at this moment, we don't have a timeline for spoolless because it's on hiatus. We're moving to the 3kg spools, because the 3kg spools are fine for folks. 1kg, we may move to spoolless and make it more expensive and just have the $10 on the 3kg, which is kind of the situation right now. And end up having like a $15 spoolless refill in the 1kg, because the 1kg just whacks you. The spoolless would definitely be 1kg, because you really can't make it much bigger. This kind of comes back to like the process sizing of it. We think there's a way of doing spoolless where there's like kind of lightweight cardboard sandwiches on the outside to help contain and hold it more, because the straps are not enough and it can go round too easy. And even Bamboo and everybody else, their spoolless refills can tangle or break loose and all the things. Just there's a lot of, you lose control of it. And you create a bad customer experience. So spoolless is kind of on hiatus because it doesn't really create a cost efficiency at the moment. Eventually it will, because eliminating any part always creates a cost advantage when you're at a big enough scale. But right now there's not enough scale to justify the manufacturing machine investment to create spoolless really efficiently. So that's where that's landing. Would it be 3 kg or 1 kg? It'd be 1 kg. There's no way to do the 3 kg spoolless unless we come up with some innovation around that. I'd be terrified of doing 3 kg spoolless. But even our machine right now can only do 1 kg. Chance for tax exemption set up with Tangled. No, not at this moment. Part of the thing of Tangled is the fact that we just don't deal with edge case stuff. Tangled is the cheapest filament on the planet at $10 a spool right now. Cheaper than Chinese stuff and that kind of thing. You're gonna have to muscle up the 5 or 8% sales tax or whatever it was, because that's an extra $1 into $11 or whatever it happens to be. Or, well, it's still cheaper than everything else. The tax exemption, even for schools and that kind of stuff, you got to buy the filament. Because in order for you to get the tax exemption, you got to send the form over to us and we got to approve it and blah, 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 blah. And it's not worth the administration for $2 when it's already the cheapest material out there. So if it's not cheap enough for you, I'm sorry. But part of the efficiency of Tangled is just the fact that it's low lift. Like, if somebody complains to us about hung spool or something, we do an immediate refund. We don't even do discussions about it. Like, the customer support on Tangled is meant to be explicitly light because there's nothing more expensive than human time. And tax exemption sucks up a lot of time. And to be blunt, precious few people do it, or precious few spools are sold over there. If a school came to us and said, we want to buy 1,000 spools and was willing to do a PO for that, then we can have that discussion. But we can't do it for 3 spools, guys. It's already the cheapest material out there. I wish I could help and I wish I could appreciate that, be better with that. But like, it's such an edge case to where we just don't have time, to where it runs into a bottomless hole of just sucking up time for stuff. And right now, Tangled is already stupid cheap. So we think we've done plenty in helping with that, to where you can just say the spool actually cost $11 and roll the tax into it when you put it on your receipts. And it's still a screaming good deal for you. Will Teleport have configurable infill density and patterns per file? Not right now. We're not disregarding it. We're trying to put more of that control into Teleport. It's a consideration. It is not officially on roadmap yet. I would like to, but at the same time, Teleport right at this moment, Teleport actually in this instant suffers from too much complexity. It's more convoluted than I would like it to be. Partially because we built it last November. It's way better than most apps, and quite the story of Teleport is one that someday we will review. But no, not right at the moment. Configurable infill density. It is doable. Technically, again, with this API update that we're doing, that becomes conceivable, but it's mainly targeted at like API users who have really specific use cases. But infill density and patterns per file, the first thing that we would ever change would be like surface finish features. So like fuzzy skin and like layer height, so that we can introduce like a fast draft one, super strong. They wouldn't be like infill settings of like 25% or 50%. I hate those types of features in apps. I don't want 50%. It doesn't mean anything to you. I want super strong, super cheap, lightweight, no layer lines. The things that describe what they are. The settings inside of there, like super fast, 0.3 resolution, low infill, out of PLA. Super cheap, PLA, lower infill, 0.3 resolution. No post-processing. Super strong, fully solid infill or whatever, and 0.2 resolution with ironing. I don't know, those things. So that would be how we would do that. Actual settings configuration just introduces a lot of convolution into the app. And until we know a way of doing the UI there to where it doesn't become confusing for new users, because Teleport is really about expanding to people who aren't really 3D printing nerds. Anybody can use Teleport and never have seen a 3D printer before. They just know they upload a file and then the part shows up to the customer. That's a big win because nobody has to know anything about the 3D printer. It's helpful if they do, but they don't have to. It's just like it's helpful if you know how the internet connection kind of works, so that if it goes down, oh, my Wi-Fi might be stuck for a second. But advanced features and configuration control could come to Teleport as like a pop-up or an expert options item inside of Teleport. But if that menu can lead someone inexperienced into a rabbit hole that gets them really up, don't want to do that. Because Teleport is a consumer product and we want it to be available to the most people possible over time. And adding 200 settings is not the way of doing that. Question. I'll be selling some items I've designed and the method of manufacturing will be FDM. I've adopted the mentality of I'm not a 3D print shop or I'm not a 3D print farm. Rather, my mentality is there are products I want to make and sell. FDM allows me to rapidly prototype and iterate on the designs, get to market quickly, and has a cost barrier to entry that I can shoulder. My intention is for that mentality to be a paradigm that leads to good business decisions. What's your opinion on that mentality? Good, bad, other. Am I missing the boat? No, that's perfect. I think that's perfect. FDM is good for rapid prototyping and safe prototyping. If you're able to design, it's fantastic. It's way more robust than many people realize. Watch this YouTube channel. You'll know how to make strong parts that look good all the time and are independent of slicer settings. Make sure that you design parts that are independent of slicing settings. That would be like my number one piece of design advice. Will it lead to good business decisions? I don't know. Good design for FDM does not implicitly lead to good business decisions. So I can't say that it'll necessarily help you with that. But yeah, it's free to start creating FDM designs. And again, with Teleport, you can upload them and sell them for free. You never even have to own a 3D printer. Yeah, you can just kind of run it through a slicer, get a preview of what it would be, and get a preview on the things and all the rest of it. Question 1, does Teleport support parts that require multiple build plates in a single order listing, or would it require multiple orders and listings? It does. You can upload 2 separate parts of 2 separate materials or 2 separate colors that are part of one listing. So like a green base and a purple cap that are printed on 2 separate machines can be from one product, and you sell a green thing with a purple lid. That's totally doable. Does Teleport support multiple small parts on one build plate? Yeah, go for it. Create an STL with 5 parts on it that fits on the build plate, 220 by 220 by 220, and upload it, and it's fine. Absolutely. Yeah, Teleport can do all that stuff. Question, what's your perspective on multi-material printing for like TPU and PLA? Multi-material printing has much more validity than multi-color printing because you can get really cool functional benefits out of it, like, yeah, the TPU hinge inside of the thing. But rarely is that necessary when you can just design an assembly. And again, you get more reliable production, more cost-effective production, because this TPU machine can be a TPU machine, and that can be a PLA machine, and then you just slide the TPU hinge into the PLA part. So just design for assembly, and it's not a big deal. So there are cases, there's absolutely situations where being able to print with multiple materials inside of the single part, like a gear with a carbon fiber outer shell but PLA core, so that you have wear resistance but cheap material for the bulk of it, for the structure and compressive force. That'd be fine. I understand the value of that. But that's more of like a 10% optimization and not like a killer app type of a feature. So I don't think it's that important. And I haven't seen the killer app application. I'm sure there is one, just like 3D printing is a killer app for rocket nozzles. But they're, in general FDM, I don't know where it is outside of cool feature. But at the same time, as an engineer, I think it's really sick. As a product designer, I don't know where to go with it. Question, is there any thought about printing multiple Yeah, we just talked that one. This is a different one. How well does Teleport handle multicolored parts? Print a green cap over there and purple cap over there. Question, being in business requires certain brutality towards that which stands in the way of goals. Did you always possess that, or is there a specific experience that slapped it into you that you could share? I recommend watching my bio podcast, which was like 3 weeks ago, and you can find out what my history is. A brutality, I don't think it's necessarily a brutality, it is a resilience. Can you take the beating of shoving down a wall? Not, can you mow down people? Can you break through and take the pain of that? Because it's hard to create stuff. As far did I ever always experience or not, I don't know. I grew up on a cattle ranch, been kicked by a horse. There's much worse pains than creating a business as far as I'm concerned. But my upbringing and lifestyle was one of just hard work and rugged independence because I came up in a really rural cattle ranch. So it was a lot of nature around, or nurture around that, and a certain amount of nature, I suppose, because my family historically have been cattle ranchers and that kind of thing. So there's something in that. But the advice about building up resilience in business is mainly just not consider failures learning rather than failure. And that helps a ton to improve your resilience. Because many people think failure is, I'm a failure. And it's like, no, failure is, I now know not what to not do. You take that, you take it as part of the cost of education, and you move on. And it's not, I'm worthless, I failed. It's like, cool, I am smarter now, I'm moving on. And it kind of shifts your perspective about it. So that I would say is like a fundamental idea around business that I think everybody can kind of learn from. Question, could you give some marketing tips when advertising brand new products when starting from nothing? A product, right now, I would say any product that is learn how to demonstrate your product. Or have a demonstrable product. If you've got a mouse trap, show it trapping a mouse. Figure out how to set up a webcam for 24 hours, put a piece of cheese on there, and show it trapping a mouse so people know it traps a mouse. And we live in a video economy right now. Post it on TikTok and say a super mouse trapper. I would say really learn how to do video, because video is really fundamental right now, and learn how to show what your thing does on video. If I was doing a good video for this, I would show myself dropping a phone in there, snapping it on there, and then playing the game. Wham-a-doodle. There you go. So yeah, get comfortable with video. It does not have to be video of you. You don't have to do this. You don't have to have your face on it. But you have to show off the product. I would say video is even more important than like product photography, because we live in a world also where people are very forgiving of creators and people rough cut stuff. Because they just know, it's a human doing a thing. So long as they prove that they're a human doing a thing and not just a scam, video is really good for proving that. So say, hey guys, I invented this whole thing. You can put your phone in there. It's really great. Put it right there. We have sellers on Teleport who have sold hundreds of thousands of dollars with videos, and quite frankly, not great product photos. So don't get caught in the details of like it has to look perfect. I would say learn to make videos that demonstrate your product. That's the biggest one. I do have a product I already sold, but I hate fulfillment, so I stopped. The issue is it needs MJF printing with vapor smoothing. Do you think we will ever offer MJF printing in Teleport? No, we won't. MJF, I'm deeply terrified of MJF. Like the whole discussion about having somebody else's machines. HP, I don't personally. For the operation of our business, we do not consider HP to be a stable enough organization to support MJF and the needs of our company far into the future. So this is not investment advice. This is for entertainment purposes only, but like I don't want to use MJF. Also ecosystem problems and supply chain problems, all the rest of it. Will your companies become traded companies at some point? My expectation is yes. Actually, this is an interesting, we've gone a while. This is an interesting conversation about should we go public, should we not? I have no problem going public. Operationally, I think going public is good because it holds you to a particular standard and kind of makes the world keep an eye on you so that you're not doing anything shady. From a monetary standpoint, it's not really necessary to go public. The private markets have all the money you can need anymore, so nobody has to go public anymore. And there was a discussion about this the other day. It's like there have been no IPOs since like 2022 of any real note. And most of the big companies like SpaceX, OpenAI, that kind of stuff, are getting all the billions of dollars that they need privately. And there's even vehicles now to where like retail investors can get involved in those private deals. So the public markets are kind of becoming irrelevant. That being said, of the decision of going public, everybody's all like, "Oh, you lose your long-term views, and you got quarterly things and that kind of stuff, and your focuses change." I'm like, I might be naive, but I think that's mainly just a problem of companies not setting appropriate expectations and communicating openly. Because when product companies go public, they are selling themselves, and people are incentivized to sell the moon. We're going to be enormous. When we go public, we're going to raise this money, and then we're going to become the next Amazon, hoorah, all this stuff. And it's a great story. And then as soon as that story starts to crack just a little bit, all the rats leave the ship. However, if you go into that saying, we're a manufacturing company, we have a good potential of turning into Amazon, but there's a lot of speed bumps inside of that, and it's probably going to be a rocky boat all the way through, and you're just very transparent with it from the start, and you manage expectations and communicate clearly, and don't disappear for 6 months and say, "Don't worry, it's fine, but we're not talking to anybody right now, no comment." If you don't do that, I think the public markets can be very good for you. The examples I would use is like Amazon. Jeff Bezos had a fantastically fast-growing company, and then he survived the dot-com boom and very clearly said to his investors, like, "Hey, we're in this for 10 or 20 years building this company. This bust is a blip. Our fundamentals are still fine. We're losing money, but that's because we're building a warehouse every other week. We can stop building warehouses and just run what we got, and we'd be profitable." So, and Jeff talks about this, and he says, you attract the correct type of investor then. If you're selling the moon and you're just trying to scoop up money, then you get people who are very finicky and very poor quality investors. But if you are measured, ambitious but measured, you can get high quality investors who are just like, I understand that he understands the fundamentals of the business. He's explained them to me. I understand and appreciate the fundamentals of the business. Therefore, I will allow them to run. And that is how you can be a stable company and be a public company, miss a quarter, and not have your stock drop by 40%. Like, just communicate clearly and not surprise people. By the way, this is not an example of good low volatility or stability over time, but like Tesla, I think the fact that Elon just communicates very transparently on Twitter and he's the voice box and what he says goes for real, unlike most other CEOs, people know what he's angling for, and that has inflated Tesla. But that's also why it's so popular and trades so well, because the CEO is telling you what he's going to do, and he's pretty much done all that stuff. So yeah, yeah. Okay. Other questions. Okay, that's it for questions. Man, questions has become past half the podcast, but it's kind of fun. Keep them coming. I'm going to be interested to see what we do when we have the same question coming back around and around and around from people who haven't watched the podcast before. I don't know how I'm going to deal with that. I think the answers will just get shorter, and I'll say, I answered that before. Or we'll start filtering them more for more original questions. But thank you guys so much. Comment down below if there's any other questions that you want us to cover at next week's podcast. And I think that'll do it. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you next week.